Hi everyone and welcome back. This is a video tutorial on how to use the manual settings of the new gradient correction tool in PixInsight. After making my first video comparing this new tool with the Gradient script in PixInsight, I spent more time testing and experimenting with the manual controls of the new gradient correction tool. And in this video I'll show you how to use the manual settings of the gradient correction tool depending on your astrophotography images. The settings may differ depending on your light pollution, on your images. Maybe you have a dark nebula or a reflection nebula. Maybe you have a lot of faint nebula clouds in the background or a bright galaxy. Before I'll show you the results and what settings I used, I do want to share with you a few things about this gradient tool in PixInsight. It will work best if you'll use it at the beginning on a linear image. This means you need to use it before stretching the photo. This way you'll get the best results. I've tested also on a stretch image. It will work and you can get good results also that way. However, you cannot guarantee that it will give you always the best results. Second, before using the gradient tool on your astrophotography image, you should check if you have borders on your images or this kind of stacking borders that I have here. So if you have stacking artifacts, you should definitely crop the image. Same is with Galaxies gradient removal tool. So here is the cropped image after applying the gradient correction tool. Here we have an image with the Orion Nebula that it didn't require any cropping. Let's see before and after using the gradient correction tool. See, we didn't need any crop. The same here with Andromeda Galaxy, it worked very good even if we didn't crop this edge. So here is an image where I didn't crop it, and here the result was similar with the one that it was cropped. So you see, it can work also with these borders. However, if you have this kind of borders, I do recommend to crop and use it on the new cropped image. Here another example. This was not cropped, just a small border here, and depending on the settings I used with the gradient correction tool, I had an artifact here. Changing here the settings, and I'll show you in a few moments also how to do this, I managed to get a good result also with the border without having the artifact, and similar result with the image cropped. Here we have the image cropped and you see it looks very similar. So comparing with other gradient removal tools, gradient correction will work in many situations even if you don't crop it, but it's still best to crop edges to be sure you'll get the best possible results. Here we have an example with the British star cluster M45. In this image I didn't use flats and we have this vignetting. Now using the gradient correction tool, even with manual settings, lowering the threshold, it will remove here the dark gradients on the corners, but I've noticed that can affect also this faint dust that is visible here. In this image with Messiah 78, even if we had vignetting by not using flats, we were able to get a good result with gradient correction tool in PixInsight. However, this doesn't mean you'll be able to do this every time, because it's not optimized to correct only light pollution gradients, not vignetting from your telescope. After we know how is best to use the gradient correction tool, let's see how to use these manual settings to get the best results with our astrophotography images. And we will start here with a dark nebula, the Dark Shark Nebula. This is my final result after experimenting here with the manual settings. This was the first image that I decided to crop it. You'll go and crop the image. You'll go here and select crop and just crop these margins of the image where you have gradients or artifacts, so you have a good clean image. This is the example where you want to also crop. Now we'll press execute and we have our cropped image. You see we have dark gradients here on the corner. Close dynamic crop, and let's see what we can get with the default settings. We'll just apply it here. So this is the result with the default setting. You can see we lost some faint dust using the auto settings. And we will continue by just changing here the low threshold to protect more the dark image structures. We have an improvement compared with the first one. And here we can lower the threshold to 0.1 and we'll use it again. We just made the changes with the low threshold and high threshold. And because in this example, these clouds were brighter than the background, but very dim, not dark like here, like in this region, you need to experiment a little bit by changing the high threshold. The next image is the Witched Nebula. Here is the first result, first test. Here is the second one. Before correction with a harsh gradient, this is the image with screen transfer function, but with a stronger stretch. We can see how strong is this gradient here. In order to correct this image, we'll open Gradient Correction Tool and let's see how the auto will work, the auto settings. We'll keep structure protection on and apply it. So this is the result. What we can see here, we do have left some gradients here on the left part of the image. Also here on the lower part. So we'll go back and also duplicate this image and show you how to fix this. Now, in order to get better results, we notice here on some bright gradients. We'll have now to change the high threshold. So from 0.5, I will go 0.15. It's best to experiment with small steps. We can try with 0.10 or 0.15. I left it at 15 and let's apply it. Already got a better result. And here we do not see that bad gradient anymore. Also here it looks much better in the corner. I'll show here how I did change the scale and the smoothness for images that have more complicated gradients like this one. Then scale will go to 2 and smoothness to 2. Be aware these two are most important, and also high threshold. Then you can also use protection threshold to play with this slider in case the default one doesn't work so good. So let's leave it on default for the moment, structure protection, and go with these settings. Let's apply it here. Let's go full screen and drop it. So you see, let's see before, after, much better. I couldn't remove this one. We increase the high threshold at 15 scale and smoothness at 2 and 0.2. And a little bit the protection threshold. We reduced a little bit the protection and we do have a nice result. Let's see before and after. So this is the result on Tadpoles Nebula and Flaming Star Nebula with an image that was already stretched and normally does not work as good. But look how good it was able to fix it. We have here an image with the Milky Way. Let's make it larger. And let's use the gradient correction with default settings. It didn't work so good. If you have landscapes like this, it will not work properly. So I've decided to crop the image to see how good it will remove the gradients if we have the image cropped. And we increase here the high threshold because we have higher pollution here on this part, so increase it to 10 for the moment. We leave protection now on default and low threshold here also on default. And let's begin. And here's the result. We can check how it was before and after. And here it managed to remove bright gradients, but we lost a little bit of contrast here. Here we have an image with Messier 33. And we will crop here these borders before using Gradient Correction Tool. We'll use the crop tool. And here we have the image. So after cropping and using the gradient correction tool with the auto settings, it seems we do not have to make any corrections here. So in this situation, you can just use the gradient correction without changing any of the manual settings. I'll show you another example with Andromeda galaxy, where we have gradients here on the left and some faint signal here also on the left part of the galaxy that we want to preserve. Using the auto settings, we got a nice result, but it was not perfect. It removed the gradients very nice, but we also lost a little bit of this faint signal. And we do not want this. We want to preserve also the faint light and structures here on the left part of the galaxy. To do this, we need to use the manual settings of the gradient correction tool. And we will move here the high threshold. We lower it to 001. Doing so, it will not include this faint light here in the gradient correction parameters. Also, we will change the protection threshold here to 02. We'll select automatic convergence and generate protection mask. We lowered also the protection threshold slider to prevent overcorrection on dimmer image structures. And now we'll apply it here on the image. And here we have the result. And you can see it managed to keep here this faint signal, but remove also the gradients. So another good result by just changing here the high threshold, reducing it to 0 and reducing also the protection threshold, we were able to get a much better image than with the auto settings using the gradient correction tool in PixInsight. And I don't want to repeat at the end what settings you should focus on. We have low threshold and high threshold here to consider when making the first changes. Then structure protection, enable it, and also I think it's best to use generate protection masks on very bright nebulas and galaxies. Here you can change also the protection threshold and lower the protection if needed or enhance it depending on the images that you have, and you saw the examples that I've experimented before. And on images that have difficult and complex gradients, you can lower here the scale and smoothness, like in the example here with the Tecnosky Nebula and Flaming Star Nebula. Here reducing the scale like this, it's let's say 2, and smoothness did help remove these bad gradients. Don't forget to subscribe and check also the channel membership if you are interested also in downloading and processing my astrophotography data. Well, my friends, this is all for tonight. I hope this video helped you to process the images faster, remove the gradients easier when needing to use the manual settings. Until next time, clear sky, and I'll see you soon in the next video.